You know, it's a tragedy that we've got to be talking about the destruction of our country. And as you, in your introduction, stated, when I started on talk radio 26 years ago, it was a statement I made that infuriated a lot of people, including those on the right. I said, within a very short period of time in our lifetime, we're going to see the United States thrust into a civil war, and it would be based on ethnic issues. Ethnic meaning, obviously, race war, but it would also be the globalists and the one world order, the new world order people, doing their best to destroy this great country of ours, the United States of America. And since that statement 26 years ago, we've seen the downward progression of the United States in all realms. We've seen the traitors in our elected highest, positions of the land, you know, starting, in my opinion, from George Bush Sr. forward, basically doing everything they could to give the enemies of the United States the advantage. The technology that was sold to China under Bush Sr., Greg, I interviewed the inventor of the neutron bomb before he passed away. And he was on my radio show numerous times talking about the fact that he was present when the neutron bomb, the ultimate weapon in the Defense Department's arsenal, the plans were given to the Chinese. Fast forward to the Clinton administration, Loral Satellite Corporation. Now we're at a time period where our enemies are so technologically advanced, and what do we see? We see in the United States now, failure after failure. We see entire, if you will, weapon systems being pretty much placed into obsolescence by newer statements, and China and Russia going full bore in the realm of developing weapon systems. So this is what really causes me concern. And we're at war, Greg. People better understand that. Not just an ideological war, but we're at a technological war, a financial war. We're seeing the global control masters, the puppet masters, controlling every aspect of the American economy. And I've told people this, the stock market is like the hypnotist amulet. People watch that to think that's a good indicator of where the economy is going. That's absolutely the worst indicator because that just tells you what the manipulators and their algorithmic trading programs are being able to do. So today on this show, I hope we cover what's just behind the headlines because it's very dire. You know, I was making the statement. I believe it was one of the writers for one of the recent articles in, good night, it was in the American Thinker magazine, I forget the author's name, maybe Trevor Thomas, forgive me, I always want to give attribution. He said, today's liberalism isn't merely intrinsically evil, but rather inherently evil. What we're seeing is those words playing out right before our eyes, and as you and I are recording this right now, for broadcast, you know, you want to mention that they have found the supposed bomber, and this. You and I are in agreement, Greg, that this was an empathy bombing. Go ahead and bring that to your audience's attention.
Well, no matter how they play it, no matter if I don't think it's a far right winger, but I mean, you'll know. But by the time this comes out, there'll be a lot more information out about it. But no matter what it is, they're playing it to the hilt. You have Robert De Niro, the creepy, visceral weasel. Robert De Niro, the man in the world of pretend, who wants to tell us how to live. Robert De Niro, who wants to punch the president in the face. I think he said that one time. He said, well, they have their bombs, and we have our votes, and votes are stronger than bombs. I mean, votes for what? Votes for open border, new world order, universal basic income, higher taxes, less rights, destruction of the Constitution. Do you mean votes for that? Because they can't run on what they want to do to us.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And here's the deal with the voting and the immigration. What most people don't understand is this is a long plan that has been lived out. It's been basically put into place. Look at the American male sperm count. Now, somebody said, well, how are they getting there? Real simply this, is that the mullahs of Islam have made the statement that their women's wombs will be the victorious weapon over the West. The American male sperm count is absolutely atrocious. Same thing with Russia, by the way. And it's fascinating to me that there seems to be this incredible hate. And isn't it fascinating that to control the dialogue and discourse, anybody that even brings up, hey, look, we've got issues in this country that go beyond the buzzword of the left, racism. And what we're seeing is Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, I think it's number 13, just overwhelm everybody with everything. And that's why the tragic display of fake bombs in the mail with the coordinated delivery of the left to make it look like it's the right, I think people better understand this. The President of the United States is still the President of the United States, although half the country doesn't want to accept that.
Well, that's what they tell us, and I'm not so sure that's right.
Yeah,
that's what they tell us. I don't believe any of the polls.
Well, I don't believe any of the polls either, except the President of Poland. I think what he has to say is very valid. I'm not being a smart aleck there. I really do. Same thing with the President of Hungary, Viktor Orban, probably one of the brightest and most concise men in the world. But let's get on to what's going on in the United States. The racial tension had it had decreased until Obama came on the scene. And remember his famous statement that America's the greatest country in the world and we intend to change all that? I submit to you, Greg, and I submit to your listeners that we're seeing that play out. So we're seeing now the words, even of the Guatemalan president, that 100 ISIS members have been arrested that were joining the caravan. And by the way, let's call it what it is. It is the invasionary tip of the spear. Why is the American middle class is dying dead and soon to be like the albatross? Simply this, because the immigrants are being given all the benefits, and it's called displacement. And those who fought for this country, died for this country, i.e. its vets, i.e. those of us who have been patriotic, those of us who have been sounding the alarm for a quarter decade or longer, we're in the position now of being called the enemy.
Not a quarter decade, 25 years.
Yes.
A quarter century.
Quarter century, yeah. Thank you. I guess we've come to the point where a quarter of a century is the accurate statement, and we're seeing now the implementation of the destruction of the United States in all realms. And look,
but hold on. Let's give some people some hope here now. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton was supposed to finish us off. I mean, I'm clear about that. I'm good with that. What she wanted to do, because there were limits to the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and limits to the First. They wanted to limit the Constitution. They hate the Constitution. That's why they hated Kavanaugh, because he's going to stick to the Constitution. But their plan's been disrupted. There's some hope here, right?
Oh, there's lots of hope. Because here's the thing. Lots of hope. And the hope is that people are now seeing these guys have overplayed their hand. And by the way, guys is an understatement. These entities, what you're seeing is every form of warfare in all realms. You're seeing it in the political. And there is hope because Jesus said, and whether you want to acknowledge this or not, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Isn't it amazing that the mainstream media accuses the right of lies and accuses everybody that empirically can document what they say, as you can, as I can, in 14 books as we spent the research. But you see, they have to denigrate. They have to kill the messengers because they're scared to death of the message.
Oh, they're total propaganda. I mean, the mainstream media has turned into total propaganda.
But propaganda is nice. They're totally instruments of mind control. Who was it, the former head of the CIA, that said, well, no, our efforts have been effective when everything the American people believe is a lie? Well, they didn't judge one group of people. And, you know, the war on the First Amendment, those who kill free speech will also kill those who choose to speak it and to utilize that aspect of our Bill of Rights.
Let's talk about the Civil War you think that could happen. You think it's coming. How bad is this going to get? Now, some people say we're going to have civil unrest and we're going to have civil war in some big cities, but we won't go full-blown civil war, which I think will end the same way the first one did for the Democrats. That's who the South was, the Democrats. The Ku Klux Klan, that was the South. That's the slave owners were the Democrats. And they wanted to keep slaves, and Republicans didn't. So it's going to end the same for the for the Democrats. Is that right? If it gets that far, why do you think we're headed for a civil war, and how bad could it get in your mind?
Well, first of all, I believe that the Civil War is part of the fifth column and the plans of both the Russian and the Chinese military to initiate a civil war, to turn a country against itself. A nation divided cannot stand, a house divided will not stand. If you look at all of the pre-positioning of weapons throughout the country, and Fast and Furious was Little League compared to what really went on. You remember the fear and the fuss over all of the expenditures for DHS ammo and weapons, and all, by the way, of the reports that I'm getting, Dave Hodges, others are getting, of the amount of weapons going from all over the world into Mexico, into Latin America, being distributed even in the gangs of the United States. That's one thing I don't think people really recognize, is that the gangs have adopted more of a military positioning than just simply a criminal positioning like the old La Cosa Nostra, if you will, the mafia. So we're now watching an extreme technological advancement in weaponry. The worry about drones, the worry about autonomous drones, the worry about intercepting U.S. military drones and redirecting armed drones against the people that thought they were in control of the drones. The amount of algorithms being initiated by foreign governments and sold on the dark web, the amount of weapon systems available to those who have money. So here's what I'm saying. People had better thank God, and this will make, I don't care who it makes furious, but Donald Trump has done more for freedom. And here's the thing. People don't like his morality. They don't like this. They don't like that. Tell me, who was responsible for telling the government of South Africa, we're not going to sit by and allow you to wipe out whites, cut their throats, and steal their land? Donald Trump. Who was responsible for getting the American pastor held hostage in Turkey? Donald Trump. Who has done more, according to Franklin Graham, and by the way, I wholeheartedly agree with him, to stop and make it clear that it's not open season on Christians any longer? It's Donald Trump, and it's also Vice President Pence. So when I talked about Civil War 26 years ago, what was in the back of my mind, and I've defined it through literally hundreds of hours of broadcasts, if not thousands, is the idea that you have to turn the nation on itself in order to take advantage and exploit, especially if we're coming to a foreign invasion. And I got news for you. I stand by that statement. I don't know when. I don't know if God's given us a 4-year reprieve or an 8-year reprieve. But the hardest thing for people to accept is the fact that there are belligerent nations out there just licking their chops, waiting to move in on the kill.